Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting of the Planning Commission of June 25th, 2012 to order, and would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Ferris.
Here.
Commissioner Turpel.
Here.
Commissioner Roundtree.
Here.
Commissioner Tapking. Here. Chair Reynolds.
Here. Now is the time for public comments, and I don't have any cards for public comments. If there's someone in the audience that would like to speak and not on an agenda item, now is the time to fill out a card or come forward and you can fill out a card after you speak. Seeing none, we'll continue on with the agenda. And we'll go to the written comments, announces, and continuances. And Mr. John Shepard is with us this evening. Is there anything, Mr. Shepard?
Yes, Chair Reynolds. There are no continuances to announce or supplemental packet. However, there is an action that the Commission needs to do tonight.
And with that, and that is to nominations and election of the Vice Chair of the Commission. And at this time, I will open nominations, and I would like to make the nomination of the Planning Commissioner that has probably now been on the Commission next to my tenure to the longest, and that's Mr. Pete Turpel. So I'd like to place his name in nomination. Are there any other nominations? Then I'll close nominations and ask you to vote, please.
Motion passed 5-0.
Okay, thank you. And I'm pleased that we did this finally at the meetings. We've been waiting for a full commission to do it. I'm going to have ankle replacement surgery, so I don't know if I'm going to be available or whatever. So it's important to have a vice chair. So it might be yours for a couple of meetings after July 25th. So, and we do have the month of August.
Well, I look forward to it, and I appreciate the Commission's support on that.
Okay, thank you. And wait for the clerk to take her seat. I'd like the clerk to open case 6A, please.
Hearing advertised as required by law is hereby open to consider agenda item 6A regarding case SUP 2012-70130, applicant El Sancho Loco, request to allow the on-site sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages, beer and wine only, at an existing restaurant. Location 2271 Michael Drive.
Thank you. And good evening, Mr. Berrigan. You're going to give the staff report?
Yes. Good evening, Chair Reynolds and members of the Commission. As mentioned, for your consideration tonight, a special use permit application has been filed to allow the sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages, beer and wine only, to an existing restaurant, El Sancho Loco, located at 2271 Michael Drive. If you take a look at the PowerPoint, this is the project location. It was previously a Taco Bell and is now El Sancho Loco. As you can see, it's nestled between Newberry Road, Michael Drive, and Orchard Road. The applicant is proposing to allow the sale and consumption of beer and wine to an existing restaurant. Municipal code requires that any sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages within 400 feet of residential be reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission. In this case, the restaurant is approximately 380 feet from the nearest residential area. Some past cases in the background. In 1978, the shopping center was approved. In 1980, a freestanding restaurant was approved, Taco Bell, which is Taco Bell. In April of 2010, Taco Bell was replaced by El Sancho Loco. In April of 2012, the subject application was submitted requesting the sale and consumption of beer and wine for the existing restaurant. In June 2012, the existing restaurant was approved for outdoor dining. This is the front view of the subject restaurant. With regards to evaluation, the restaurant is situated within a commercial shopping center. The nearest residential area to the south, approximately 380 feet away, and is separated by a parking lot, Michael Drive, and Newberry Gateway Park. The other nearest residential tract is to the southeast and is approximately 386 feet away, and is also separated by a shopping center, parking lot, Michael Drive, and Newberry Gateway Park. This is an aerial view showing Michael Drive and Newberry Gateway Park in conjunction with the restaurant. As you can see, the red line demonstrates the 380 feet from the nearest residential property. It's staff's opinion that based on the distances and locations of the restaurant, that there are adequate buffers between the restaurant and residential properties. Thus, staff does not believe the request will create an impact on surrounding residential properties. The restaurant is maintaining the same floor, configuration, and dining area, and no bar area is being proposed. Therefore, staff does not believe the restaurant will generate additional traffic or parking impacts. These are a few pictures of the interior of the restaurant. The applicant is requesting the hours of operation from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week for the restaurant. Police Department has reviewed this application and provided recommended conditions of approval that are in your packet. This project is exempt from CEQA since it's a minor change to an existing restaurant. In conclusion, staff is recommending the Planning Commission to approve this project based on the findings in the staff report and subject to the conditions of approval. Staff is available for any of your questions.
Thank you. Are there questions of staff? Commissioners? No questions? Okay, at this time, I'll call the cards. I have only one speaker's card, but I have four written statement cards. 2 people are in support of it, and 2 did not indicate their support or their opposition to it. And I passed these cards between the commissioners so they could see them. And at this time, I'd like to call Mr. Joe Escobar forward. You'll have 15 minutes to speak, and would you please state your name and city of residence for the record?
Yes, my name is Joe Rudy Escobar. My residence is in Camarillo, California. Good evening, Commission members. I just stated my name. I'm representing El Sancho Loco, a restaurant in Newberry Park, and tonight we're applying for a beer and wine license only. I wanted to give you a little background about the business. We are a family-owned and operated authentic Mexican restaurant. I can usually be found in the front managing the restaurant or in the back prepping food, getting things ready for the day. And other members of my families are usually hostesses, dishwashers. My aunt helps out a lot. My family's here. The youngest helps me cut onions. The oldest and my fiance helped me with the wedding. They coordinated a wedding for me this weekend, so it is a very family-oriented business. Without them, without their backing 100%, it's tough. It really is, and I'm glad I have their support. Let's see. I've been in the food industry for over 10 years. I used to have a restaurant in Venice Beach on the boardwalk called Muscle Beach Cafe. I used to make the commute from Camarillo to Venice for 4 years until I finally found something closer to home and focused on one food item, which is authentic Mexican food. That's what I grew up eating. That's what I've known to love, and that's what we make. We've been in business. I opened up the doors July 1st of 2010. We're going on 2 years this coming July 1st. It is exciting. It has been a roller coaster ride. And in that period of time, we've built a lot of relationships and bridges. We've done local fundraisers for the community, for youth sports teams, girls softball teams, AYSO sponsorship, donated food to local churches during the holidays. We are applying for a beer and wine license only, and our intention is to sell beer and wine as a part of a meal. In other words, we are not a bar. There is no bar section. It's only to order a glass of wine or a cold beer with their food. Customers can also order drinks. We also have soda and freshly made water, horchata, jamaica, tamarindo. Everything is made in-house to complement the food. However, a few customers do want an occasional glass of wine or a cold beer to go with their food. We are excited and proud to be a part of the business community here in the city of Thousand Oaks. All of the customers that walked through the doors have welcomed us warmly and expressed how happy they are to have another family-run restaurant in the neighborhood. In return, we would like to provide the best customer service and dining experience possible for them, as we feel that having the beer and wine option as a part of a full-service dining experience is greatly needed to help us achieve that. Again, we are really excited and grateful to be here, and I want to thank the commission members for their time and consideration this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there questions of the speaker? Any questions? Sure. Commissioner Ferris.
Thank you. So have you looked and read through all the conditions that have been provided by staff, and you're okay with them?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
110%.
The only reason I mention it is that there are some conditions that are I look at them as redundant. They sort of say some of the same things, and I just want to know if you're okay with the way they're all worded, just
Yes.
so that beforehand we all know the city, what they're planning, and you as a restaurateur are in agreement with it. So,
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other? I did stop by today. I just walked in to see the location of the restaurant, and it is a freestanding building with lots of parking around it. So, thank you. You'll have the right for a 5-minute rebuttal after we go back to staff. So stay close by.
All right. Thank you.
At this time, we'll go back to staff if they have any additional things that you'd like to add, Mr. Berrigan.
Staff has no additional comments at this time.
Are there any other questions of Commission of Staff? Then I will go back to Mr. Escobar again. If you'd like to come forward and make any additional comments, or if you're okay with everything, you can just say that. Just state your name again for the record.
My name's Joe Escobar. I'm satisfied with the...
You're okay with
Yes,
everything?
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then I will close the public hearing, and this is the time for commissioners for deliberation. Motion, what's your pleasure? Commissioner Tapking? Oh, Commissioner Ferris.
Okay. I think this is it's great, consistent with what's going on in the neighborhood, and certainly the conditions are there, and hopefully this will help to expand their operations and be a great part of the community. So I will make a motion that the Planning Commission approve SUP 2012-70130 based upon the following findings and subject to the attached conditions in our staff report.
Any comments to the motion? Commissioner Trepel?
Yeah, I'll support the motion. I couldn't say it any better, and I'm really excited. Where did he go? There you are. Really excited to have you in town, and by the way, your tacos are fantastic.
Oh. Other comments? Okay, and I will also support the motion. When you said the Muscle Beach Cafe, I take care of the food vendors for the Thousand Oaks Rotary Club, and I know that Muscle Beach has been in our street fair for quite a few years, so familiar with it. Okay. Any further comments to the motion, Commissioner Ferris? Then would you please vote, Commissioners?
Motion passed 5-0.
Okay, thank you, and welcome to the community. There is a 10-day appeal period if necessary. And with that, we'll go on to case 6B. Would the clerk please open that hearing?
Hearing advertised as required by law is hereby open to consider agenda item 6B regarding case SUP 2012-70180, applicant Conejo Valley Veterinary Hospital, request to allow the conversion of an existing industrial building into a veterinary hospital and animal boarding facility. Location, 3580 Willow Lane.
Good evening, Mr. Alawami. If you'd like to give the staff report.
Yes, thank you. Chair, members of the commission, I'd like to direct your attention to the monitors. As mentioned, this request before you tonight is to allow the conversion of an industrial building into a veterinary hospital and boarding facility, and it's located on let me find the there. Okay. Here's a picture. We lost the aerial map, but here's a picture of the building, the existing building right now. It's at the end of Willow Lane, with a terminus on the west side, on the east side of Hampshire, and there's a driveway along there's another building next to it, and the driveway leads to this building. Again, the request is to convert that building into a veterinary hospital. Canal Valley Veterinary Hospital is located right now on Thousand Oaks Boulevard, just on the west side of the Civic Arts Plaza. Here's a site plan showing the building and the parking spaces. The parking spaces on the right-hand side of the building are additional parking spaces to be added to satisfy the parking requirements. So those are new spaces. Under the M1 zone, special use permit application is required for veterinary hospital and dog kennels. The existing building is approximately 17,000 square feet. 12,000 square feet of that will be for the hospital operation, and 4,000 will be for the animal boarding and the kennel. And there is an existing 1,000 square foot of mezzanine and storage area. Here's the floor plan. The white area is the hospital offices, and the dark area is where the kennel, the boarding facility, and it's connected, but at the same time it has its own entrance. And I don't know if you see the cross-hatched area in the middle there, that's where the mezzanine is. The hospital and the boarding will be open 24 hours for emergency situation, of course, for the hospital, and the operation of the boarding facility. Staff doesn't believe there's going to be any noise impact to adjacent properties because the location of the kennel itself is surrounded on the outside by parking facilities and by Edison power lines on the north side of the property. The applicant is proposing to add a tower element to the corner of the building to give the building an identity and a location for on-building sign. The parking, the hospital area, staff consider the parking because it's mostly an office use, professional office use, to be a 1 to 250, and which requires 47 parking spaces. And the boarding and the mezzanine is 1 to 1,000. One parking space for each 1,000 square feet, which requires 5 spaces. The total parking spaces will be 52, and that's what's shown on the site plan. And as I mentioned, 9 of those will be added to the site. They're not there yet. And staff and asking the commission tonight to consider 1 to 1,000, one parking space for each 1,000 square feet of the boarding facilities. The fact that there's going to be minimum staff at that location. And there's going to be a connection between the hospital and the boarding. However, the minimum staff there doesn't require additional parking more than what's been asked tonight from the commission to consider, which is 4 spaces for the boarding facility area. There's an elevation showing the tower element in the building, which is going to be in the corner, and that's where the primary entrance is. Again, the proposed facility, in staff's opinion, does not create any adverse impact on surrounding properties. There are industrial uses and some offices, but there's parking lots surrounding the site from almost all sides. It will be compatible with the adjacent uses because, again, staff doesn't anticipate any issue with the office because it's a destination facility rather than in and out, so it will be compatible with adjacent uses. And it will be, of course, a good use of an existing empty industrial building. In conclusion, staff recommends that the Plan Commission approve special use permit 2012-70180. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Are there questions of staff?
Yes.
Commissioner Ferris. Commissioner Roundtree, do you want to go first?
Correct me if I'm wrong, has there been no boarding allowed in the city of Thousand Oaks? Because the report makes reference to that there aren't any, and I've been here for many, many years, and I've always tried to find a place to put the dog. Is this the first?
Not an approved boarding. There is one clinic, small clinic, that has a small area with boarding and animal boarding, but not this large size. No, this is the first one.
I'm curious. Our neighbors next door have more than. Why is that, do you think? Has there been a rule against having a boarding facility for animals in the city of Thousand Oaks?
No, nobody requested that before.
Okay.
It requires a special use permit in industrial zone, so unless somebody is filing an application, otherwise, there's limitation on the noise where the animals will be boarded and everything else, but otherwise, I don't think anybody filed an application before.
Okay. The second question had to do, the driveway leading into that building needs some help. Is that part of this plan here, or is that something that the owner, the two owners will just have to figure out? Because as you drive to this building,
Yeah, the two property owners has to deal with that. It's a reciprocal access driveway for the properties, so they need to deal with each other and upgrading that driveway.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ferris?
Thank you. Mr. Alwan, I had some questions about the parking. If I read the conditions, and maybe you can point me to them if I've overlooked them, the parking calculations we've got is based upon a difference of the uses that are going to be in this particular property. And so as long as they stay within those uses, then the parking calculations are kind of as they're in front of us, right?
Correct.
Do we have a condition in here that says they need to ensure that the amount of office use does not increase over that is shown on, say, Exhibit 1A1, to ensure that they don't creep into the extra square footage that's being used for
There is no
kennel
condition
medicine?
stating that. However, Condition 13, the parking requirement, required parking states that the minimum 52, and it referenced the site plan. So because we reference the site plan shows the breakdown of the different uses in the building. But if the commission needs to be more specific, we can do that. But by referencing the site plan, it shows the breakdown. Anytime there's a change to that, they need to come back to us and discuss that with us to see if there's going to be enough parking to accommodate the change in use. But that's how we say in 52 required. The site plan shows the breakdown, what's provided, what's required.
Okay, then maybe I can ask Mr. Shepard or our city attorney that do we feel that that's a sufficient enough condition to ensure that they are abiding by the planned use? The concern I have is if they choose to creep into the kennel mezzanine area and they don't tell anybody, or there's no condition to really sort of make sure they're signing up to that, they could lead to more parking requirements than we're approving tonight.
I would rather have it more specific if we could, so we would create a condition that would, again, as I think what you're trying to say is to, if they're going to expand, for example, the boarding area, that it would in turn require a review of the parking conditions.
Actually, the boarding area actually turns out not to be the problem. It's the office space. If they creep into the boarding area, because they need a few more offices or something like that, then that adds more parking. So
Sure.
I just want to know if it's okay if we think that there needs to be a little bit more stronger language in the conditions.
You can certainly create that condition.
I did have one more.
Go ahead.
Thank you. On Exhibit 1A1, it does show that the breakdown of parking spaces are standard, compact, and accessible, and that there's 33% of the compact spaces. Am I reading that correctly?
Correct.
I just want to make sure.
Correct.
In kind of trying to figure out what the right thing to do here is, if in looking at the code on sort of what the maximum amount of compact spaces are, it says that if it's office use, that the maximum is 25%.
Right.
It can go up to 50% if we choose to allow the special use permit, which that's what we're doing here tonight. Mm-hmm. Is it wise for us to ensure that that's a condition as well if we believe that is something we want to approve tonight based on the plans? There's a code section that specifically
Correct.
talks about it, and we're kind of interpreting this as office use, so.
I think that's fine if you want to add that condition.
That specifically would allow for going up to 33% as indicated on Exhibit A1.
Understood.
Okay, all right. Thank you, I appreciate it.
We'll just make sure that the applicant's aware of that. And so would you ask that then when the applicant comes forward?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are there any other questions? Staff, Commissioner Tapking? No. Oh, Commissioner Terpel?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, it's for my fellow Commissioner Ferris. What exhibit were you talking about that you were looking at that?
There's Exhibit A1 in the site plan.
Oh, okay.
There's a table that kind of goes through how the parking required and which types of, there, and it sort of says a little 33% next to it.
Okay, and also, I don't know if all the commissioners are aware, compact spots are not narrower, they're shorter. And a lot of people aren't aware of that. They think when they see compact that it's a narrower spot, and it's not. It's just a shorter spot, and a lot of times they'll use them because of the backing up to get out of spots. Too. I'd like to ask staff a question, but I must also state that I am a client. My dog is a patient, not me. I am a client of the Conejo Valley Veterinary Clinic, and wanted to make that disclosure. So, Commissioner Roundtree?
I would also like to, for the record, disclose that my dog, Mocha, is a customer of the hospital.
In that case, Madam Chair, I'm going to have to disclose that as well.
Commissioner Tapking?
Don't look at me.
Okay, we'll continue on. And my question, Mr. Alawami, is that we are not reviewing anything about the monument sign, and I'm very concerned about signage on this property. There is a monument sign for the other business that's just in front of this, and it says in the report under condition 27 that they will be submitting some type of plan. Would they have to share that other monument sign, or would they be allowed their own freestanding monument sign?
Not out in the street, because that will be off-site monument sign. They are showing on building, there's a sign.
Yeah, on the top of the tower, there's one on each side.
And that's the only sign I'm aware of at this time they're proposing. If any consideration, we need to look at the history behind the existing sign and see if it was permitted in the past for this building to have their name on that sign.
Okay, because that, I'm talking about at the end of the cul-de-sac.
Correct.
There is the, for that company, there is a sign there. And because of the location of this, and being a 24-hour emergency, that I'm just concerned about signage on this building so that people can see
If
it,
the
too.
applicant requests a sign, then we'll look into the history of what, because they have reciprocal parking, access arrangement, we'll see if that was part of it or not.
Okay, thank you. I believe that's the only question I had, and if there are no more questions of staff? Sure, Commissioner Trevell.
Yeah, Mr. Alawami, you just mentioned something, and I didn't look at that when I was out at the site. You said the building up in front, which I think used to be Weiser Litho, and Oakstone was in there before that. They have a reciprocal parking agreement?
No, access agreement.
Okay,
Driveway.
never mind. You're talking about the driveway then?
Driveway,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, with that, I will open the public hearing. I have one speaker's card, and I also have a written statement card in support, which all the commissioners have seen. So with that, I will call Dr. Todd Hughes forward. You have 15 minutes, and if you state your name and city of residence, please. And welcome.
Thank you, Commission. My name is Dr. Todd Hughes. I'm from Newbury Park, California. And I just wanted to put a face on the hospital name, Conejo Valley Veterinary Hospital. Conejo Valley Veterinary Hospital was founded in 1958 by Dr. Robert Miller. I don't know if any of you guys know him. He's pretty famous in the veterinary community. We also have one of the founders, Dr. Kind, who has a statue out here in front of City Hall. So Conejo Valley Veterinary Hospital still has a very rich history here basically has been around before Thousand Oaks was a city. Jungle Land was actually right here on this very spot, and the veterinarians treated all the lions and tigers and all the exotic animals, and there's plenty of stories to go along with that. But anyway, that was all before I was born, and I am hoping to carry the legacy of these founders in keeping Conejo Valley Veterinary Hospital one of the best veterinary hospitals in the United States. And right now, we're in a 5,000 square foot facility on Chio Boulevard, and we're definitely busting at the seams. We're probably 20 years overdue for a new hospital, and so we're hoping to create a state-of-the-art hospital that reflects the doctors, the level of medicine and surgery that we practice. And then also we're hoping to put a boarding and doggy daycare facility in the particular location, because Thousand Oaks is in great need of that for the community. And I think, I forgot who stated that just at the beginning of this, but there hasn't been any boarding in Thousand Oaks at all, and there is a great need for it. So without further ado, I just wanted to introduce myself and thank you for your consideration. So,
Are there questions of the speaker? I think there has been some boarding, because I boarded a dog 30-something years ago, illegally probably, now I realize.
Yeah, it's under the I think a lot of veterinary hospitals say extended hospitalization or something of that sort, but technically they shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah. Can you tell me how many kennel you're going to have? I tried to count, but I didn't know what the larger areas that they were part of the...
Yeah, that's still, most likely it'll be 50 to 75 kennels, and it depends on how much doggy daycare, like the plans right now, I'll have to count them, but we are going back and forth on how many we're gonna put there. So if you look at the plans, there's a doggy daycare, like kind of play space, and there might be a few runs that go in there. I'm just still trying to get expert advice on what the right balance is. But as far as parking goes, it's still the same use. I mean, it's just an open area where dogs are boarded and they just have a play area, basically. So.
Okay, thank you. Are there any, Commissioner Tapke?
Perhaps just some similar questions. What's your anticipated load for pets for animals there on an evening or a weekend basis? I mean, obviously you're doing daycare, and obviously you want to do boarding,
right.
So you see some need. What's the expectation?
I'm sorry, repeat that question.
Okay, you're going to have, if you have 50 to 75 kennels, how many dogs does that support? 2, 3, 4 per kennel?
Typically, actually, 1 per kennel, maybe 2. Yeah. There wouldn't be more than 2 per kennel, and that would be, from a family that maybe wants to keep their 2 pets together so they don't get lonely.
And are you providing additional services to these pets, grooming, et cetera?
Not really. Basically, just boarding and daycare, just a play area, and grooming would be limited to just a cleanup bath. Basically, if they've stayed for a week and they smell and they don't, the owners appreciate a nice cleanup bath, so they smell nice when they go home.
Okay, and then the hospital will provide the same services that you provide now, or extended?
Exactly. Yeah. So right now we're a full service veterinary hospital. We just became 24-hour critical care emergency services. It's been we've done that since May 2nd of 2011, so it's been a little bit over a year. So we plan on doing that. It's been very well received in the Thousand Oaks community and beyond. I mean, we're getting clients from Simi Valley, Camarillo, sometimes even the San Fernando Valley. And so I think we're filling a great need there. Yeah.
So you'll be the second or the third 24-hour emergency care?
We will be actually the second. The first and only emergency and critical care place in Thousand Oaks is Pet Emergency Clinics.
Right. Okay, that's what I thought. All right,
yeah.
So I'm glad to see it. I will tell you very honestly, I'm going to be very disappointed to see you leave the boulevard, having been there when we did have pets. Secondly, having known both Dr. Miller and Dr. Kind, which makes me significantly older than you, as well as all of the people at Jungle Land, I am extremely pleased to see this continue to carry on, and looking forward to seeing this happen. It's a nice-sized facility. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to place a bunch of dogs barking beside a freeway where they won't bother each other. So, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Commissioner Roundtree?
Yeah, on your blueprint, you do show a pretty good-sized area for dog grooming. Is that just for the patients there and not necessarily going out into the community and advertising dog grooming like if you went to some other facility around town?
You know what? It's still grooming in the veterinary industry. As far as like the amount you make from grooming, it's about 1% of how much money you make, but it's about 100% of the headaches. You just have clients that are very sticklers about whether or not their poodle is cut a certain way and that kind of stuff. So that's still up for debate. I probably will have a little bit of grooming there, but whether or not we advertise, most likely not.
Okay. Because I know a lot of folks who are customers of yours would love to have their dog looked after at the place where they've been cared for, so that's super. The expansion of any other retail products, typically when you go into your hospital now and you buy foods, medicines, and so forth, you'll still have those and be able to offer those?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Ferris?
Hi, thank you. I'm really excited about the opportunity for you to go into this larger facility and this particular warehouse too. I think it's just nice to see some of these bigger places to have a vibrant, business operations that are going to be there. So, I did ask some questions about additional conditions that would help us ensure that the plans you've got here that would make sure that we're dealing with the parking requirements. One would be, I think it turns out it's A2 is the breakdown between kennel mezzanine versus office space. Are you okay if we were to sort of say, let's stick with that ratio to make sure that the parking requirements are met?
Yeah, I think I'm okay. Let me just turn to my team here for a second. Yeah.
Did you want Mr. Bloom to come forward?
If you want to.
Danny?
Oh, okay.
I have no objection.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then this is just sort of another little thing about the compact spaces. It's just one of these things of making sure it's a condition that gives you the ability to have those compact spaces in accordance with what we have the authority to give you. So you're okay with that? And so all the other conditions you're okay with too?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Okay.
All right, hey, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, any other questions of the speaker? And I'm very pleased to see that there'll be handicap spots there, because where you are now, there aren't.
Yeah.
So that was my first thing when I saw that. So, okay, if there are no more questions, we'll have you come back for a 5-minute rebuttal if there's anything else that you hear during the discussion, so before we close the public hearing. So thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And at this time, we'll go back to staff. Does Mr. Alawami, do you have anything else?
I'd just like to mention, we worked with the applicant's architect. Initially, they have approximately 48% of compact. We worked with them to reduce that to 33% by modifying the parking lot, moving spaces around. So I have two conditions based on the discussion. Condition will say a maximum of 33% compact spaces are allowed as shown on the site plan. We reference the site plan and the date on it. And the second condition, it says any expansion of the veterinary hospital facility should be reviewed and approved by Community Development Department for compliance with municipal code parking requirements.
Okay, and when he comes back for rebuttal, we'll make sure that it's okay with the applicant. So, anything else?
Nothing
you want
else.
to add? Any questions? Further questions? Commissioner Chappelle.
Mr. Alawami, that last condition, because I'm glad Commissioner Ferris brought it up. It was my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner Ferris, that what the concern was is if they were going to increase the footprint within their existing building. And the way I understood your the second condition you talked about is if they expanded which to me would be adding on space.
The expansion could be the converting of the storage or the boarding facility.
Within the footprint as it
means
sits.
the same, yeah.
Okay.
There's no outdoor expansion. They can't do that because of the parking spaces. It would be difficult.
Okay, sure. Commissioner Ferris?
Is it worthwhile to make sure it says expansion or conversion? Is it? Would it
Probably
make
using
sense?
the word conversion.
Okay.
I feel that's...
Okay.
Is it
Great.
fine?
All
Mr.
right.
Yeher? Expansion or conversion, okay. Anything else, questions of staff? Then I'll ask Dr. Hughes if you'd like to come back and state your name and city residence, and you have 5 more minutes. And Commissioner Ferris, whenever, if you want. I mean, if he wants to talk for 5 minutes, and then you ask your question, so you don't go into his rebuttal time, okay? Would you state, yes. What?
From
Okay, I'm
Newbury Park, California, and I am done talking.
Can I ask, given the particular language and then the additional comments, are you okay with the wording of those 2 specific
Yes, I'm
additional
okay with
conditions? Great.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Then I'll close the public hearing, and now is the time for motion, deliberation. Your pleasure, commissioners. Commissioner Tepking.
I'll make a motion. I would make a motion to approve SUP 2012-70-70-180, subject to the attached and amended conditions.
Okay,
And findings.
Findings,
That's correct. I
right.
beg your pardon.
okay, thank you. Any other comments to the motion? Okay, I'm just very pleased to see this move. I know Dr. Miller and his wife, and Mr. Kine lived within the Conejo Oaks area and was friendly with the family, so I thank you for carrying on his legacy, or both of them. So with that, if there are any other comments to the motion, Commissioner Tepking, Commissioner Ferris? Oh, then we'll vote, please.
Motion passed 5-0.
And there is a 10-day right of appeal period. So, and welcome to your new location. Thank you. Commissioners, do you want to continue on with the agenda? Okay, then we'll go on to case 6C. If the clerk would please open that hearing.
Hearing advertised as required by law is hereby open to consider agenda item 6C regarding case SUP 2011-70592, applicant Andrew Winchester, request to allow construction of a drive-through and walk-up Starbucks, location 1195 East Thousand Oaks Boulevard.
Thank you. And Mr. Alawami, you're going to give the staff report?
That's me again. Yes, thank you. As stated, the applicant, Mr. Winchester, filed the special use permit application requesting on behalf of Starbucks to construct a drive-through and a walk-up Starbucks coffee building at 1195 Thousand Oaks Boulevard. Here's the location of the site. It's in the northwest corner of Thousand Oaks Boulevard and Rancho Road, which used to be a gas station. The site's been vacant for several years. And here's a picture of the site, and the building behind on the right-hand side is where the access, as I will explain in my presentation, will be taken from. Again, the project is to construct a drive-through and a walk-up Starbucks. The amended Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plan that was adopted by the City Council over a month ago allowed a drive-through establishment along the frontage of Thousand Oaks Boulevard. Again, the project is a drive-through walk-up, and there's no indoor seating area. The building is approximately 850 square feet. The access to the site will be, right now there's 3 driveway openings on the site, 2 on Teo Boulevard and 1 on Rancho Road. The one on Rancho Road will be closed, and one of the Thousand Oaks Boulevard driveways will be closed. The second one on Teo Boulevard will be used, and the access of Rancho will be from the property to the north, which is the light shop building, and that will be access to the site itself from Rancho Road. Here's a site plan. It shows the building in the front of Thousand Oaks Boulevard. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's the little building in the front, and outdoor seating area surrounding the building on almost 3 sides. At the intersection, the drive-through lane is in the back of the building, and the parking also in the back. And you see in the north, in the top left hand is where the access connection point between the building to the north and between the parcel to the north and this parcel to provide the Rancho Road access to the site. The proposed project complies with the applicable requirements in the Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plan. Again, the recently amended TO Boulevard requires that the drive-through access to be behind the building, that the project provides an outdoor courtyard or plaza in the front between the building and the sidewalk, and to avoid the conflict between pedestrian and the drive-through access points. It also complies with other standards in the specific plan. The sidewalk width along TO Boulevard is 15 feet, and on Rancho Road 8 feet, which the plan shows those dimensions. The building setback, the Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plan requires 0 to 15 feet from the edge of the sidewalk to the building. The proposed project provides between 7 and 22 feet. The additional 7 feet is part of the outdoor gathering place that the applicant is providing. Under the specific plan, the minimum height is 20 feet and maximum 50 average. However, the proposed plan is at 20 feet proposed, and it's a single story. Also, the plan requires up to 3% of the footprint of the building to be a public space or a courtyard. In this case, it's almost 88% outdoor space provided. The building design, architecture design complies with the city standards and with the Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plan. The hours for operation proposed by the applicant is 5 a.m. to 11. However, from talking to the applicant just outside, they're proposing later hours, and they'll be making that presentation to the commission, requesting to open later than 11 p.m. The traffic consultant prepared a queuing and circulation study that staff reviewed, and staff believes that adequate drive-through stacking is provided at the site. Here's the elevation of the building. The south side is the one that's going to be facing Thousand Oaks Boulevard, and shows the walk-up window in the front there and the access door to the building, and the other door is the restroom. And here's the other elevation of the building. The proposed project is category exempt from CEQA because it's an infill project. In conclusion, staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the special use permit application based on the finding and the suggested conditions. Staff will be available for any questions. Thank you.
Are there questions of staff?
Yes. Has anyone contacted the owner to the adjacent property to determine whether or not they're okay with sharing the same driveway with a?
Yeah, my understanding is Mr. Winchester is a partner in the ownership of the property to the north. They don't own it, but my understanding is there are partners in that ownership. And yes, there is.
And the existing tenant also?
The applicant will be answer that question. Okay. Yes.
I have a card for Mr. Winchester, so at the time we open have the cards, we'll have Mr. Winchester come to the microphone and answer that question. Okay? Commissioner Roundtree, go ahead.
Yeah, I still have a couple more questions. Thanks. Do we have any other examples in town of drive-through facilities, particularly restaurants, sharing a common driveway?
Yes. The McDonald's on TO Boulevard in Westlake, they share the driveway that's common to the shopping center. I'm sure a lot of them that are located within shopping centers, they share a common driveway. The other McDonald's and Moore Park and Jan's, they share the driveway to the shopping center.
Their actual main entrance.
Correct.
Okay. And the last question I've got for you has to do with the contaminants that are known to be on the property.
Yeah,
The question is, who's responsible for that mess? I mean, it's been there forever.
That's been cleaned up, and there's a letter from the Ventura County Health stating that the site is clean. It's been cleaned up by Mr. Winchester.
Took years. Any other questions, Commissioner Ferris?
Thank you, Mr. Alawami. I'm trying to find it on the site plan, but I can't do it. How is the signage for the Starbucks on Rancho Road? How is that going to help direct people to know to go to that other driveway?
Well, you have a package of the sign program.
I guess my question is, where is it going to be located?
It's in the tower. The tower that's facing Rancho Road, there will be a sign on it saying drive-through, and that will be visible from Rancho Road. At this time, there is no sign, independent sign on Rancho Road driveway. That's what the proposed sign program showing. The tower feature will have a sign and says drive-through on it, but based on the program submitted, there is no separate sign on Rancho Road.
Well, I'm looking at the sign program. I think it's page, I don't know, it's probably page 3 of the packet. And it does state drive-through, but it states drive-through both facing Thousand Oaks Boulevard and Rancho Road. And if I thought I read it in the packet, or at least a description of how this was going to work, that there was going to be signage directing people to go to Rancho Road for the drive-through for Starbucks. And I guess I'm trying to figure out where it is.
The applicant might answer that question. They're not proposing any sign of the Rancho Road driveway. So if they're proposing that tonight, it could be considered by the commission.
Okay, thank you.
The directory sign. Directional sign, sorry.
Just a minute while we confer with staff.
There's an interior sign between the two, that connection between the two parcels. There's a directional signs in the corner in the planter area, but there's not one proposed on the Rancho driveway access.
Right. I mean, ultimately, once they know to come in, there will be signs to direct them into the drive-through lane, but not
Correct.
to know to come through the back of the property.
Correct. If the applicant proposes this tonight will be an off-site directional sign, and it's part of the special use permit, so it's up to the planning commission to consider that tonight.
Is it okay if I keep asking you questions? Mother.
No problem. That's what I'm here for.
Okay. All right. Let me see. It is mentioned, and maybe the applicant can end up helping out a little bit here too. But it is specified that they sort of looked at 3 different Starbucks locations that are drive-throughs: Lompoc, Oxnard, and Simi Valley, and it was determined or judged that the Oxnard one is the most appropriate one to base our expected visits on. Do we have a good understanding of why that is the one? The way I read it, it just reads that we looked at 3 the one with the lowest traffic requirements really is the one that's the most consistent, but that's really the extent of it.
Beth Baden can answer that question.
Good evening. That's the applicant's representation of his project. And we did ask him to look at the third store, which is the Simi Valley store, which in his opinion is a much busier site. And that gave staff a level of comfort that if this site is more popular than the applicant expects, that we still have a level of comfort that there would be plenty of stacking available on the property.
Okay. So I'll ask the applicant then as well. Let me see. There was one condition in 72 that talks about a pre-grading meeting with adjacent property owners and residents, and the applicant will mail a letter notice to all owners of record within 300 feet of the subject property. What is the current notification requirements for this hearing?
500 feet.
Is it appropriate for that to be looked at as a 500-foot radius as well, to make sure that the same people are getting
We
getting
can
notified?
definitely expand the radius if
Okay.
that's what the commission wishes tonight.
Okay, thank you.
But isn't there very little grading going on, though, Commissioner Ferris? That's what it says, I thought, in the report.
It's a pre-grading meeting,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
So, I
which
mean,
is a
it's-
standard condition, I think.
Right. But it really, I mean, it's sort of a discussion with property owners as to, after the permit's been approved.
they know
how's
what's
this-
going on with
Absolutely.
dust or other things,
Absolutely. On condition 82, it talks about replacing the existing Caltrans 23 freeway sign. I just had a kind of a question. Is this, I guess, since this is the first property that's being dealt with as Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plan, how might this actually affect the overall handling of properties and existing Caltrans signs along the boulevard?
My understanding is this is the only Caltrans sign along within the specific plan. That I don't think there's one eastbound. There's no Caltrans sign, so this is the only one. I don't think there's one on Moore Park Road going to the 101 freeway, so this is the only Caltrans sign that's within the specific plan.
Great, that's a perfect answer. If it turns out it's just specific to this one instance, I just had a question on the ramifications of it. So those are the only questions I have at this time. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
I'm sorry, yes, Commissioner.
Okay. I just had a couple of things. I think the question that Commissioner Ferris was talking about with as far as the locations that were studied as far as the stacking is concerned, because it says that it looks like we have enough stacking. Is there a particular formula that details that? And stacking is the number of cars that would be in the lane at any particular time, correct?
That's right, and that's probably a question for the applicant.
Okay.
They hired a traffic consultant at our request and did a detailed analysis of the stacking requirements of the site to support the site plan that you have before you tonight.
Okay, and with that being said, maybe this other question I have would be for the applicant as well, because as I look at the circulation, it looks like patrons could also enter in off of Thousand Oaks Boulevard and then cross the egress, I guess, of people coming out of the driveway for, after they picked up. Do you see what I'm saying? I don't know what the word, so is that correct? That's what I'm understanding? You can come in on Teal Boulevard and then we have two cars looking at each other?
Yes, and if you look at the study that was done, there is a diagram showing how to control the traffic, and it is on page...
So we put big signs up that say "Keep clear"?
Yes, that's the intent. Well,
Okay.
I mean, again, we could put traffic stop sign.
Yeah.
I mean, eventually, hopefully, people will get the idea that, keep clear of that, don't block the intersection. I mean, it's...
And there's no concern of traffic building up on Teal Boulevard eastbound or westbound traffic?
There's always a concern on drive-through stacking on the public street. We try to avoid that. And part of the mitigation measures, if that happens, then there additional mitigation measure will be taken place to correct that. We told the applicant from the beginning we don't want any impact to the public street. And if there's any problem with the stacking, there's other issues we can institute.
Well, we have the issue with the Teal Boulevard specific plan too, as far as, inhibiting any pedestrian traffic as well.
Correct.
Okay, those are the two things that plague me, so.
Any other questions? Commissioner Tapking? No? Oh, the applicant. And I had concerns about the rental company, the trucks, that will cease as soon as the Starbucks is built, because they park sometimes on the street and they block the traffic and everything, plus just maneuvering. I tried to drive in there today, and there's a little planter, and there's walls and everything else, and I just wanted to make sure that the budget trucks will not be parking or in existence when this building is completed.
The applicant can discuss that further. However, my understanding is because where the wall is and the gate, that's going to be removed to allow for the connection between the two parcels, which means all the trucks in the front would not be able to park there anymore because they're going to interfere with this access, which is part of the project. The on-street parking on the south side of the driveway, there's a condition requiring that to be no traffic, no parking on that side for the right turn traffic flow.
Right, so I would assume the business will not
Correct.
exist.
Well, the business itself, the applicant can add to that. I don't know if it can exist or not, but they cannot park the trucks in the front.
But the lighting company will stay in that building then?
That's my understanding as well.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Tapking.
Actually, that does spur one. I want to make sure that I understand this. I did not read it or I missed it, but will there be no parking on the street then on Rancho Road from both the driveway down to the corner, et cetera? There will be, because there is parking now.
Corner of what? Teal Boulevard.
At the corner of Thousand Oaks Boulevard, that's correct.
We have a condition that parking be restricted for sight distance at the driveways. So the applicant will use the city's standard plate for sight distance at intersections of driveways and public streets and restrict parking further if necessary for that to meet that standard.
But I guess that doesn't really satisfy my question or my concern, because having just been there again recently when the budget trucks were lined up from the residential zone down to Thousand Oaks Boulevard, and then watching this site as a result, it is a significant concern to me that vehicles would be parking on Rancho Road down to the corner, which would create an issue at that particular point, all the way up to the intersection. Now, for us simply to say around the driveway provides concern to me on not only sight distance, but blockage at that particular point. I don't want to see somebody going out there, jumping into one of those trucks and trying to drive off while somebody else is coming down that road at that point. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are days that they're there and there are days that they're not. But this last Sunday, they were stacked like crazy. So that's a concern, and I would want to see, we can talk to the applicant about that or whoever it is, but my concern would be is that it be no parking, period, through there. That creates an issue.
I didn't analyze the area that would be required to be posted for no parking. We would like to keep a balance of available parking if possible. So we don't want to restrict the entire length unless it's needed for safety reasons. But there are other things we can do if a height restriction is needed, because I think you're talking about larger vehicles.
Yeah, because on the other side, once you get past the lighting building, you immediately get into the residential area.
Right.
And at that building, once it starts to get into the residential area, if they want to park on their street, be my guest. They need to have access to that at that particular point. But if somebody's coming down, that driveway needs to be visible, and then the closer you get to that corner, that's got to be available for people to make that right turn.
Right.
Okay.
And go ahead, Commissioner Ferris.
And a follow-up on that is, are we in a position, this is a subject parcel that is at the direct corner of Rancho and TO, but they're going to be utilizing a driveway that's now north of where the subject property is. Are we able to condition parking on Rancho Road for that purpose to ensure the proper site distance?
Yes, that's in the conditions that are before you tonight.
Great. Okay, I just want to make sure that we are, in fact, have the ability to condition on that, not just limited to the subject property. All right, thanks.
And Ms. Baden, I was concerned about heading south on Rancho Road, and let's say you want to make a left turn into the driveway. Do you see any stacking where, because there is a left turn lane to go left going north on opposite direction, south on Rancho, I'm worried about when you go to get into the center thing to make a left turn into this driveway, are you going to be blocking traffic trying to get into the left turn pocket to make a left turn on Thousand Oaks Boulevard? I was very aware of that when I went and drove that.
Right, there is a left turn pocket at the intersection for southbound Rancho onto Thousand Oaks Boulevard. And north of the left turn pocket, it becomes a two-way left turn lane. And that two-way left turn lane serves all of the driveways on this section of Rancho Road.
Well, I know it's also very busy because of the gas station right there in the corner. I live not that far from there and travel that often, and there's always a lot of congestion turning to the gas station or coming out of it or whatever, because the freeway, I think because of the freeway on and off ramps there, that it's just a very busy corner altogether. So I was concerned about blocking that left turn pocket there.
And that's why staff was so concerned about having the stacking and circulation on site go smoothly, so that people can very quickly move from the street into the site and get to the restaurant, whether it be the drive-through or the parking spaces. So that's why we were insisting on keeping everything clear, moving freely on the site. So that would keep your people, make the access easy and keep it as safe as possible.
And having that entrance to the Starbucks on Rancho Road further down and not where the gas station turn-in used to be probably makes it better, because if it had been where the gas station entrance was, that would really block the left turn pocket. So I see a good sense with that now that I think about it. Are there further questions to staff? Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. Was there anything else that you wanted to mention, Mr. Alawami?
No additional
comment. Before we go
comment
to the
this time.
cards? Okay. I do have several speakers' cards. There are 2 cards in my stack that are for questions only. If you want to ask questions of the district manager of Starbucks, Thousand Oaks, and also from Mr. Dick Winchester, but I did believe that we did want to ask Mr. Winchester some questions. Did someone have, or he wanted to make a statement when you were within. But the first card I have is Mr. Neil Scribner. He is the architect. If you come forward, state your name and city of residence, and you have 15 minutes, Mr. Scribner.
Good evening. Neil Scribner, 4765 Via Don Luis, Newberry Park. As you know, representatives of Starbucks are here tonight should you have any questions to ask them. And also the traffic engineer, Scott Shell, is here should you have questions of him. Dick Winchester, owner and applicant, is over here tonight. And he's owned this property since 1979 and has been involved in cleaning it up. And as you heard, there is a letter certifying that the site is now clean. Mr. Winchester also wanted you to know that he owns the property next door, and his tenant has agreed to the driveway. In fact, it would probably help the business of the guy next door to have the joint driveway. So that is agreed to, and if you'd like to hear from Mr. Winchester, he is available. He also has accepted the conditions except for one. We're asking that you extend the hours 1 hour to midnight. I believe that's reasonable here because we have neighbors have similar hours. And we're located in an area, you know, that's it's a busy street, but we have a 24-hour gas station across the street. We have Taco Bell across the street. And, of course, we have a freeway nearby, which adds noise to the area. So we just don't believe there's going to be any activity at this site that's going to exceed the noise level that's already there. So we feel it's reasonable to go an extra hour. There are a lot of locations, Starbucks locations in Thousand Oaks, and to add this to their rotation, you know, for deliveries, which are very small and very quick, small trucks in most cases, except I guess for one, which happens once a week. And so we think it's reasonable to extend the hours for 1 hour to midnight. We're not asking for any waivers or variances. And extremely important, Mr. Winchester wants you to know, the day we break ground for this project, the U-Haul trucks will be removed. They'll no longer be there. So hopefully that'll become a non-issue. I want to make it clear that the drive-in is accessed both by Thousand Oaks Boulevard and Rancho Road, which is a positive because it gives you a little more stack space. It gives you some flexibility as far as getting to the drive-in area, which is back in the center of the site, or at the rear of the site, actually. And wanted also to point out that after you stop at the drive-up window, we purposely moved the building to the east so that you can park. There's a stop sign before you enter the driveway. After you leave the drive-up window, there's a place for you to park and observe whether there's any traffic coming in off the street or not, or leaving, whatever. So, and of course, we also have the stop sign at the street. So we feel it's important to keep the traffic coming in on both streets, and it really flows better if it works that way. Regarding the on-street parking, you know, as a member of TOBA, the T.O. Boulevard Association, one of the important items to the merchants, business people on the boulevard, is having parking on the street. Very important to the business and their survival. So we hope that you will stick with the condition that the staff wrote. We will honor the sight lines, so it's safety first, getting in and out of the site and around the corner there, but we'd like to keep the condition as it is. As you know, the site is in the northwest corner of that busy intersection. We're across from a 24-hour gas station. You can enter and exit from Rancho Road and go directly to the freeway, and I think that's very important. It keeps that traffic, if there's any coming off the freeway, away from going to the side streets. The site design, as Mr. Alawami mentions, we had the new specific plan of the boulevard totally in mind. The site has 51% landscaping totally on the entire site. We have a large patio in front of the building. It's meant to be a pedestrian-friendly people space. That's what the boulevard plan asked for, and that's what I believe we've done with this project. The building itself is only 850 square feet. About 75% of it is covered in stone. We think it'll be a very soft, pleasant building to have on that corner. This question's been asked or mentioned in other hearings, but we do have an exterior bathroom for anyone in the patio. They have a bathroom available, so that's there for their convenience. And there's no indoor seating in this facility for customers. It's all outside. So that completes my presentation. If you have any questions, I would be pleased to answer. And as I mentioned, we have other consultants here should you wish to ask them questions.
Thank you, Mr. Scribner. Are there questions of the architect? Commissioner Chapkin?
Good evening.
Good evening.
A couple of really quick questions. Where is the directional sign going to be located on Rancho Road? The one that says, come in, turn here, etc. what we talked about earlier, and staff basically said you need to answer the question.
Well, both driveways will be accessible to the drive-in, so no matter how you enter the site, you're going to end up at the drive-in.
Yeah, it's not the point. The point is that when you're driving effectively south from the freeway, you get off the freeway, you head Rancho Road, you cross Thousand Oaks Boulevard, you got a choice. You can make a right turn either into the gas station or you can drive straight through up to Hillcrest, right? You can make a left turn into the lighting building. Okay, somewhere, I mean, I know where the lighting building is and I know where the driveway is going to be, but how do I know at that particular point where to make that, other than perhaps I should be able to think about that?
Well, I thought in the sign program that they had some signs at each driveway.
It could be, but I can't find it. I don't see it.
I think that was the intent, and I'm
Okay.
sure.
All right, so-
they've done that at other locations, and I'm
On the south
positive-
side or the north side of the driveway, there will be something that says effectively Starbucks.
It'll say
drive-through.
drive-in. That's
Okay.
correct. At both driveways.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other, Commissioner Ferris? Okay, that Mr. Scrivener might need to enter into the discussion then? Or, yeah, go ahead, Commissioner
I
Ferris.
figured that,
I was waiting to maybe when we go back to staff, but if it's something that the applicant might
yeah, I
need
mean,
to discuss.
I did
then-
ask a question. Commissioner Tapking mentioned some of the things about the signage to ensure people know how to get into the Starbucks. One is that they have to know to make a left turn onto Thousand Oaks Boulevard to make it into that driveway, or it's to know to go through and then make a left turn into a driveway. And so without any, and I couldn't find where the signage was, but Commissioner Tapking already asked that question. The one question I did have for staff, which I could ask for you and maybe the traffic consultant can ask, is it was looked at 3 specific drive-through Starbucks locations with different traffic levels. And why was the one for Oxnard determined to be the appropriate level for Thousand Oaks Boulevard? It was just sort of was, at least in my reading, it was just described as, here are 3, Oxnard has the lowest, and we think that's the one that's
Right.
appropriate here. So what other
Now,
information?
the reason is, in Thousand Oaks, we'll have one drive-in, and we have, I think, about 11 or 12 other locations. Oxnard was similar, one drive-in and several locations like Thousand Oaks. So that made it alike. So I guess the point is, if you have other opportunities, not just the drive-in, if you want to get coffee. In Simi, apparently they don't have a lot of locations other than the drive-in. So the drive-in is a lot more popular there. So that was the logic, as I understand it. I'm not the traffic engineer, but that's the way it was explained to me.
Maybe, do we have one of the traffic consultants here?
He's here, Mr. Scott Shell. He would be pleased to
Okay.
talk to that.
Yeah, that would be great, if possible.
Sure.
Did you want the traffic consultant to come forward right now then? Okay, why don't we, and after you speak, sir, if you would fill out a statement card for us, so please state your name and city of residence.
Hi, I'm Scott Shell with Associated Transportation Engineers, and my firm prepared the queuing study for the project. We had first selected the stores based on proximity to the site, and we also talked to staff at Starbucks to get an idea on store business. While Starbucks reps couldn't provide us with detailed customer count information because of proprietary reasons, they did confirm that the Oxnard closely matched the market expectations of this particular site. I think it's also important to note that both the Lompoc store that we studied and the Oxnard store came up with the same conclusions in terms of the queue storage required and the number of vehicles observed. So in both of those conditions, those 2 sites, the average queue in the morning was 6 cars, and the biggest queue observed at both locations was 9. I know that Starbucks representatives are here and maybe can provide a little more light on that issue in terms of the market comparisons, but we did check with them at the onset of the study.
Commissioner Ferris, go ahead.
Yeah, sir?
Oh, I'm
I did have a quick question. So would you say, obviously, at least when I read it, I didn't gain the insight that you had gone and you had talked with and gleaned the information from Starbucks itself with respect to comparing what they thought about Thousand Oaks Boulevard with Lompoc, with Oxnard. It was just sort of you reviewed the traffic patterns, and this one felt like it was the best one. Is it consistent with what Mr. Scribner sort of said, was it's based upon one drive-through location and plenty of other Starbucks locations, and that sort of drives the amount of traffic at this particular one?
Well, certainly having other stores in the market is going to play into the activity levels that you could expect at the store. So we did look at that. We also wanted to choose some sites in Ventura County, and so we went to the Starbucks app. You can put it on your phone or your computer and say, find me a Starbucks in Ventura County with a drive-through. And
I know I have it, and I use it.
I'm sure you do. And I also want to say
very convenient, by the way.
That app will tell you where the driveways are and how to get in and out of them when you're coming from the freeway. So I didn't write that in my report, but was the first thing I thought was, when my kids are looking for a Starbucks, they tell me point by point on how to get there. I digress a little, but we did look at some of the market information and talk to them about it because we knew this was a sensitive issue and we wanted to make sure that we had the bases covered. So,
okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
And there's some commissioners down here that have questions. Commissioner Roundtree?
I have a question for you. Right around the corner from the Oxnard store that you're mentioning in your report, there's one on Saviors Road. It's a new one. I was just wondering, since it's a block and a half away, why wasn't it considered as part of the Oxnard? And then the second question has to do with all of the facilities except Lompoc, because I've not been there. They're all either in-store dining and sitting and drive-through, but what we're proposing here at Thousand Oaks is a drive-through only. So when we're looking at the math of queuing up, my question is kind of for all, if we have a drive-through only, isn't there a greater propensity of having a longer line than a store that offers in-store dining as well? I mean, if you're a customer and you're going to go get a coffee, and you could either sit there or drive by, I'm thinking there might be a greater line. So I'm just wondering, does Starbucks have any other drive-through only facilities that we can use for doing the math?
when we did our research to look for example sites, I could not find one. So, I don't know where one is.
So can we ask our Starbucks representative to share with us, is there any other drive-through only Starbucks in Southern California that we could use to measure from?
I'd have to defer that to Starbucks staff. It sounds like they're going to be up here answering some of the questions. I don't know if we want to switch our seats to them right now and follow up with traffic later. Be happy to do that.
Let's finish
pleasure?
asking questions of him, and then there is
Pleasure,
the
Chair.
district manager for the Starbucks Coffee in Thousand Oaks, if that's the one you want to talk to, Mr. Valdez.
That'd be perfect. So just, I guess, the one question then about Saviors Road, was it just that one was greater traffic on Channel Islands Boulevard versus Savior Road because there's less traffic? I mean, they're both busy streets. I'm just curious, you pick one versus another?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember our thoughts on that. I believe that the storage length and the operation seems like it was going to be busier at the one we selected. We were trying to shoot high for the study sites.
Because the one that on Saviors is right next to McDonald's, so I just was curious what their queuing ratio would be. So, but if you don't have it, that's fine.
Okay.
Commissioner Turpel?
Yes, so welcome. And I can imagine you can understand we're all kind of interested in traffic. Could you explain to me how and it was a question I asked earlier, as to what is the formula to really determine how much stacking can take place within a given, what do you guys actually look at? I know you're comparing, different locations, but what are you really looking at? What are you looking for?
Well, there's several parameters that go into the stacking model. One of the first things we determine is how much space do you need to stack a car. And so the industry has developed some numbers on that. And so we know, based on actually looking at stacking, they need about 20 feet per car. So that gives the car length and some space in between the cars. So that's one of the things we look at. The next is, well, how many cars do we observe at like facilities? So it really is, most of the traffic engineering and the parking demand industry is based on going out and observing real world situations that are similar to what's being proposed, which is exactly what we did here. There isn't a lot of current industry information on stacking for the Starbucks model. It's a little bit newer in the industry. We have a lot of information on McDonald's, and we have a lot of information on hamburger stacking. There's some specific information for In-N-Out, which, as you probably know, is a little different model than than McDonald's because it has a different preparation time and it takes longer to make their burgers because they don't start them until you order them. So there's a lot of variables that go in. One of the things that I did learn from Starbucks representatives and talking to them through this issue was they're continuing to upgrade their equipment to decrease their prep time. And so one of the things they told me is they now have a double espresso machine and an automatic cup labeler. So I didn't know these things, but they said that they continue to strive to use technology within the stores to reduce production time and to continue to keep the queues down and keep the traffic moving. So I guess that was a long-winded answer to say there's a lot of variables that go into a specific determination of queue requirements for individual stores.
No, that wasn't long-winded. It was actually very good and helpful. I'm not a statistician, but I come from a marketing background. So my next question would be, do you take a look at the demographics? Because I have a feeling that a Starbucks in Beverly Hills or the people in Seattle might be different than Oxnard and Lompoc in Nebraska. So do you take a look at the psychographics and the demographics of a particular area?
I think that's very well put, which is why I started off the discussion by saying my first goal was to try and find things as close as possible and in like-minded communities such as Simi Valley. I did see one that was done in winter in Minnesota, and as you might guess, it had a higher drive-through queuing than we would see maybe in summer in California. So certainly that comes into play, but again, we rely on some of the market data that we're getting from Starbucks to judge the comparison between this store and the ones that we looked at and what they're expecting here based on their markets.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions of this gentleman? Thank you. I'm going to have Mr. Anthony Valdez come up next, since there were questions, Commissioner Roundtree. And if you come forward, state your name and city residence, please. Good evening, Mr. Valdez.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Valdez, and my city of residence is Ventura, California.
Commissioner Roundtree?
Thanks, Mr. Valdez. Can you give me a little background as to the number of Starbucks facilities that are drive-in only?
They are very few. I only know of one or two myself, but they do average about 25% walk-up, even with a drive-through.
So in the Southern California area, that would be a couple, none, one?
It would be one that I know of.
Where would that be?
That would be in the Sherman Oaks. It's around the Encino on Ventura Boulevard in the LA market.
Okay. And any special kind of concerns or issues Starbucks has with that particular facility in regards to the traffic and the things that we're all kind of talking about?
No, the one thing about the model is the drive-through only model is very efficient. In fact, it's really exciting for us in this market because they are so much more efficient than even a standard Starbucks because of the way we're able to stack the cars and provide the service to the customers as they come up.
The other one that you're mentioning in the valley someplace, how is that property layout different than the one in Thousand Oaks?
It's very similar, right? Very similar. There might be a few differences to the building, but mostly it's internal. The actual queue of the cars and the building are in the same location. Or they wrap around? So it wraps around the building, but it's very similar in the way that the building is shaped up, where you order the stack of cars, the 5-stack queue.
Mm-hmm. So it's on Ventura Boulevard, though?
Correct.
Busy street, much busier than Thousand Oaks Boulevard.
Yes.
Okay. Another question for it. What products, because I've been to a few of them now, I just want to make sure I understand this, because I've not been to a drive-up only. What products are for sale other than the traditional drinks? Are we selling mugs, music CDs?
There won't be retail. There will be coffee still for sale as our retail item. There will be our warming sandwiches and the sandwiches that are available and the bakery items that are available as well.
Okay, so no hardware services, coffee machines, that sort?
No.
Okay. About outdoor music. Is outdoor music part of the hanging out that's been kind of described in the report, sitting by the fire pit and listening to classical music or whatever?
Correct, and jazz, light music.
Okay, so music is then part of the ambiance that you're trying to create?
Correct.
Okay. Do you have any experience with the prior store having any complaints from neighbors complaining about the music?
No.
Other question, this might be more traffic related, but the report describes that the employees will need to park on site. There's 10 sites. How many employees are going to be working in this facility at any one time?
At any one time, about 5 or 6.
Okay, so then that would leave 4 for customers. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other, Commissioner Ferris?
Just a quick follow-up on the Ventura Boulevard one. I think I know where this one is, but they're right on Ventura Boulevard, and there's one way to get in and one way to get out, right?
That is correct.
Okay. It's a little bit different with this facility in which, at least as conditioned, there'd be 2 ways to get in and out. So we have the potential for crossing traffic, whereas that one actually, it flows in, flows out. That's all they're allowed to end up doing, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you very much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Valdez. Okay, we'll continue on with our cards. Was anyone interested in talking to the property owner, Mr. Winchester? Commissioner Ferris?
Just to ask, it was mentioned,
Then we'll ask Mr. Winchester to come forward. And if you'd state your name and city of residence, please.
Richard Winchester. My home is 2000 Oaks.
Mr. Scribner, welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Scribner actually had mentioned that you had said that the tenant to the north of this property was in agreement with allowing for the access.
Yes, I have a signed agreement with him. He saw no problem.
Okay. And that indeed the U-Haul trucks will be removed upon approval of this particular.
Pardon?
That the U-Haul trucks would be removed?
Yes, right.
Okay.
Too.
I just wanted to get confirmation from you on the record that that's the case. Thank you.
I'm sorry, the microphone wasn't on.
Hello, sir. Mr. Winchester. Assuming Starbucks is successful, we'll never have to... I'm over here, sir.
Pardon?
Hello. Assuming that Starbucks is very successful, we'll never have to have this conversation, but let's just assume Starbucks decides to leave. They're just not making enough money at that particular site. What do we do with this site once it's been a Starbucks?
Well, they're obligated to 10 years at a minimum. I have no idea what we do after that if they decide to leave.
Okay. Thank you.
Face that when we get there.
That's very true.
It may be totally different circumstances than today.
Yeah. Thanks, sir.
Any other questions of Mr. Winchester? No. Thank you very much, Mr. Winchester. And our next speaker is Judy Baumgartner. If you'd like to come forward and state your name and city residence, and you have 5 minutes. Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Judy Baumgartner. I am a resident of Thousand Oaks. I own the piece of property directly behind where you're talking about, the residence that's on the corner of Alamos and Rancho Road. I have some concerns. One of them possibly has been addressed, but I have some other concerns concerning the project. The first one, excuse me, being that the existing wall at the end of that piece of property in between the two where they're going to be using half of it, that existing wall is about 5 foot now, maximum. I really would love to have that raised so that it would be more of a barricade for the property. The property, at the house, our master suite is actually adjacent to that fence that backs up to what is now the rental yard. So I would love to have that increased to a minimum of 8 feet, and I think that happens pretty much all over town.
Excuse me, could you tell us, you mean at the rear of the building, the lighting company, or
Yes.
at the end of the driveway when you
No,
drive it?
at where the lighting company is at, I own the piece on the corner of Rancho.
Right, I know
and
which house that is.
Alamos Drive. So there's now a block wall
Oh.
between the two pieces of property, the part that they're going to use half of, and our existing
And
residence.
it's how high now?
It's about 4.5 feet, maybe 5. You can stand and look over it.
Okay.
There are some existing pepper trees there right now, which are very poorly spaced and really haven't gotten a lot of water. So it's not a buffer. And what I'm really looking for is like I said, an 8-foot fence, or a 10-foot would be wonderful, but something like cypress or something that would absorb some of the sound and things like that. Let's see. On-site parking, I understand, has been addressed for employees. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. On-site, if that's a provision, that the on-site parking for employees, because there is very little street parking up in that area, and I think most of the residents are concerned that they're going to have people who don't really want to go into Starbucks. They're going to be parking up that street, and they're going to be parking around on the side street on Alamos as well. And as far as the hours go, please don't extend the hours. We're already, if you're looking at 11 o'clock, people live in these houses, and when people have sat and listened to music and drank coffee, and if they're parked up that street, it's going to be really noisy for the residents that live there. Let's see. Oh, I understand that the rental trucks are no longer going to be there. I'm wondering if that can be a provision, or is it a provision, so that it will certainly be addressed the same way with the off-street parking. Any questions?
Okay, we were just looking at the condition about the, does anyone have any condition, excuse me, questions? Commissioner Roundtree.
Are you suggesting that the pepper trees be watered, trimmed, or torn down?
What would be really nice is if something that's more of a buffer that would absorb sound to be adjacent. A cypress, something that doesn't require a lot of water, but that will absorb sound and light, because this building is going to, reflect quite a bit, and the driveway coming in and out is going to shine right down onto that back side of our property.
And my second question, you mentioned about the wall. You're assuming a cinder block wall?
Yeah, it's a cinder block wall. It's actually a orange color, like we use here in Thousand Oaks.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Commissioner Trappell?
Sure. Welcome, and thanks for coming down. With regard to the time change, that extra hour that you're a little bit concerned with because of sound, do you have any problems with sound today right on the corner of, because you got the gas station right down there, you're right behind the Caneo, I think it's Caneo lighting?
Pardon? Yeah. Once in a while, there's a little bit of noise from the gas station, but not all that much. And certainly not music playing outside in the open air.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Tapkin?
My recollection of the property is that the lighting company is between you and the proposed Starbucks, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So you're facing the back of the existing building, and that's where that 5-foot wall is, correct?
Right. It's alongside the lighting building. Only the building does not overlap. It doesn't take up our whole property. The back side of that.
Correct. The wall is out here, as I recall.
Right.
Closer to Rancho Road.
No, the wall is between the two pieces of property running east and west.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
there is a small portion at a diagonal on Rancho Road, and if that were left at that height, that would be fine.
yeah.
It's
I don't
just
have a real issue with raising it. Quite honestly, I hear what you're saying, but I'm curious as to how the addition of the height will block it. The trees are not going to block sound. The wall will.
Right. Right.
So if there's any mitigation to be done for sound basis, it needs to be a wall. And I don't know legally what our limit is on height. So that would be the other part of the question is what could or could not be done. So I'm just trying to clarify.
I've noticed that behind the Ralph's Market over on Moore Park Road, where it backs up to those are 10-foot walls to mitigate the problems from the residents.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's several of them in town that have.
Okay. No, I just wanting to clarify more.
Yeah. No,
thank you very much.
I'm just looking to make it as easy as possible for us, so that we don't have to.
And it certainly would enhance your area at that particular point. The trees, although they look really really nice, they're not going to handle any sound for you at all. So. They just, not unless you got 30 feet of trees.
Yeah.
Okay.
The thing of it is over a period of time, when they get tall enough, they will help a little bit with the lighting.
They will?
And the headlights as well.
The lighting, unless I'm mistaken, there's no additional lighting at that particular point. The lighting that's from the building that's there is what's there.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, no. But part of the property where the driveway and the car lights are coming in and out on Thousand Oaks Boulevard is going to shine right down through there. So.
Okay, all right. Now I understand what you're dealing with. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the next card is Mr. Mark Wallace. If you'd like to come forward, state your name and city residence, please. And you have 5 minutes. Good evening, Mr. Wallace. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mark Wallace. I'm a resident of Thousand Oaks. I have lived for 15 years. I'm not very good at extemporaneous speaking, so if you'll bear with me, I'll read my
We're not mean,
opposition.
so just relax.
Okay. I have lived for 15 years on Alamos Drive, the first street north of the proposed Starbucks site at the northwest intersection of T.O. Boulevard and Rancho Road. Alamos Drive is less than 100 feet north of T.O. Boulevard. Alamos Drive is accessible only from Rancho Road, as Alamos Drive is a dead end. The first street north of Alamos Drive is the heavily utilized Hillcrest Drive. The existing traffic conditions that characterize the area bounded by Hillcrest Drive and T.O. Boulevard already exhibit safety issues. These issues will be greatly magnified by the building of a high-volume traffic magnet business such as Starbucks. Moreover, no meaningful nor scientifically valid study has been made of the traffic impact of the proposed Starbucks facility. The study submitted by the applicant is total nonsense. As a result, the impact is totally unknown. But there are logical reasons to believe that the impact will be significant. It's also possible that there are environmental issues due to the site's prior use as a gas station. I guess that's been resolved. Apparently, there's some study been made by the county. Additionally, carelessly discarded food from the Starbucks may significantly exacerbate the existing rat problem on Alamos Drive. Furthermore, our community has many, many more Starbucks locations than it needs, as well as burger franchises, yogurt types, etc. The objectives of the Thousand Oaks specific plan would not be served by the needless addition of yet another redundant business. 5 reasons to irrevocably reject the Starbucks application. 1, limited visibility of traffic on Rancho Road due to its curvature. When exiting Alamos Drive, there was limited visibility of southbound traffic coming from Hillcrest Drive. This is due to the curvature of Rancho Road. There is zero visibility of this traffic starting about halfway up Rancho Road. Visibility is reduced even further if vehicles, especially high-profile ones, e.g. SUVs or trucks, are parked on that portion of Rancho Road north of the current no parking zone, which extends only about 1/3 of the way up Rancho Road from Alamos Drive. Obviously, nothing can be done about the curvature of Rancho Road. Residents on Alamos Drive have learned to be extremely cautious when exiting our street. Unfortunately, the problem will be exacerbated because of the increased southbound traffic on Rancho Road due to the mere presence of a high-volume business such as Starbucks. Clearly, the likelihood of accidents will increase. Furthermore, because Rancho Road is a major thoroughfare within Thousand Oaks, as well as an access and egress from the 101 freeway, traffic on Rancho Road is likely to continuously increase as the T.O. Boulevard specific plan is implemented. Importantly, the visibility problem will also exist for vehicles exiting Starbucks from the planned Rancho Road driveway. This adds a whole new dimension to the visibility problem. Number 2, second reason, U-turns on the entrance to Alamos Drive. When going home, I regularly make a left turn from Rancho Road onto Alamos Drive. I have frequently encountered the situation where there is a vehicle in front of me that makes a U-turn at the entrance to Alamos Drive. This has happened so frequently that I have made it a practice to anticipate the significant possibility that this will occur. Thus, I always drive very cautiously to avoid possible collisions with the vehicle in front of me if it stops suddenly or turns perpendicular to me in the course of making a U-turn. I have no explanation as to why there are so many drivers taking this U-turn. I simply know that it occurs with regularity. I noticed that I seem to be running out of time. I spent many hours studying this. If I could ask the Commission to bear with me on this, I would appreciate it.
How much more time do you expect?
Maybe another 5 minutes.
What is the Commission's pleasure? Another 5 minutes, is that okay?
Okay.
Okay, go
I'll try
ahead,
to
Mr.
skip over
Wallace.
certain sections.
Okay.
I'm concerned there's already U-turn problems.
Well, we do have your letter in the packet, and all of us have seen that.
Okay, I have
So
some
we
new-
have
new
read that. It's been
okay,
part-
I have some new information.
Okay.
The third reason is there has been no valid study made of the potential traffic impact in the affected area. To my amazement, there has been no credible study made of the impact of high-volume business like Starbucks on traffic in the immediate area. The only attempt at this was a report by Associated Transport Engineers of Santa Barbara. It was apparently commissioned by Neil Schreiber Architects. I assume that this was under the aegis of the applicant. I have a bachelor's degree in mathematics from a top-tier university, Caltech, MIT peer, and a Master of Science from Purdue University in mathematical sciences. The latter degree included studies in queuing theory. I have read the ATE report in its entirety. The report is what we unaffectionately call junk science. Without going into detail, the study is immediately flawed because it bases its analysis on visually observed patterns at a number of existing Starbucks in other cities rather than the actual characteristics of the new Thousand Oaks site. This is analytically invalid, and the report should be dismissed out of hand. There are numerous other assumptions made without any supporting data. Essential to any valid study is the time-phased, anticipated traffic patterns and customer counts for the proposed location. Interestingly, the ATE report indicates that although ATE was aware of this latter requirement, specific customer counts cannot be provided by Starbucks due to confidentiality issues. This is nonsense. Either Starbucks has the data and is unwilling to share it with the city for some reason, or knows that the data, once analyzed, could hurt the likelihood of its application being approved. The customer counts must be compelling for Starbucks to open a 21st location in the area. Of course, another possibility that they don't even have valid data. Clearly, no project of this nature should be approved without a credible traffic impact report reviewed by a credible independent source. In addition, the subject site has been previously used as a gas station. I'll skip that part since we've already talked about it. We also have a rat problem on Alamos Drive, which could be exacerbated by people discarding food on the ground after eating at Starbucks. The fourth point is we don't need another Starbucks. The culture of Thousand Oaks is precious to us. We moved here because of the quality of life was far superior to most of the rest of Southern California, including the stifling accesses of the West Valley, of Los Angeles, and much of Orange County. There are currently 20 Starbucks locations within a 15-mile radius of City Hall. I have a map if you'd like to see it. Is this somehow inefficient and we need another location? I'll skip some other stuff. Starbucks is inconsistent, number 5, with the objectives of Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plan. My understanding is that the plan is to reincarnate a large section of T.O. Boulevard as an aesthetically pleasing thoroughfare, visually attractive, pedestrian-friendly, and populated with unique quality businesses. The quality of the commercial aspect of the boulevard is integral to the overall concept and appeal. It will reflect that special culture called Thousand Oaks. We want Thousand Oaks Boulevard to be a destination. Populating it with businesses which we already have in excess is hopefully not the objective. We are trying to reinvent the Thousand Oaks Boulevard as a special place in a special city, not another Ventura Boulevard. Any one of the preceding 5 factors is sufficient to immediately and permanently reject the Starbucks application. We all know that once the Starbucks is built, it will be difficult, if not impossible, to undo the negative public safety, environmental, and cultural consequences that will result. Of course, the inappropriateness of the Starbucks proposed site should also preclude the further consideration of this particular site for use by any other high-volume traffic magnet business. If the Commission is hesitant to reject the application at this hearing, it is absolutely essential that a credible traffic impact report reviewed by a credible independent source be commissioned before any further consideration is given to this application. A comprehensive environment impact study is also required, although maybe that's been done. This is the first proposed project being considered for the T.O. Boulevard specific plan. Let's not start off implementing the plan with an ill-conceived and seriously flawed plan which endangers public safety and possibly the health of the adjoining community. I have some other comments on the staff report, but since I've already taken up a lot of time, I appreciate you bearing with me. I do have copies of my material if you'd like me to leave them.
If you'd like to submit them as part of the exhibits, you can give them to the clerk.
Okay.
So, okay, are there
Thank you.
questions of the speaker, Mr. Wallace? I think that we've all read your letter, and we understand your concerns, and thank you very much.
Okay, I'd just like to emphasize my background in mathematics, queuing theory, and statistics, so there is somebody here with some statistical
Oh,
knowledge.
no, Commissioner Roundtree would like to ask you a question.
Okay.
You moved here 15 years ago, correct?
That's correct.
Right. Were there 2 gas stations on the corner when you moved in?
Say again, please?
Were there 2 gas stations
There
on
was
the
a
corner?
Shell station, and across there was a Chevron station.
So there was 2 restaurants when you moved in 15 years ago?
Restaurant, no.
Excuse me, gas stations, my bad.
There were
Gas
2
stations.
There were 2
Yeah,
gas
it was an
stations, yes.
American.
Thank you.
It was the American gas station.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And the final card I have is a Slade Blanchard. If you'd like to come forward, state your name and city residence, and you have 5 minutes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. Slade Blanchard in Anaheim, California. And I'm with the design department with Starbucks. And I wanted to, emphasize that Starbucks is interested in well-functioning site plans. And so the studies and the experience that go into site selection is from a very top-notch team. And so while there is confidential information based on sales and customer counts and things that we can't make public, there is a comparative ratios that we looked at all of that in terms of volumes and in terms of number of stores in the supporting markets. All of these things are fairly well detailed in the report, and I just wanted to emphasize that that we look at all of these things while we're selecting sites. And this site, if we can have a plan displayed, the site has a drive-through entrance deep in the site to address the maximum amount of on-site, getting customers on-site, keeping the overflow, keeping the queue away from those entrances to the street. So there's a lot of technology and a lot of issues trying to keep that traffic as efficient as possible. So I think we've kind of addressed all those. And I wanted to clarify that the additional hour was for deliveries and not for operating hours. So it was mainly just the truck, giving the truck a little bit more flexibility between 11 and 12 to address a larger market, trying to get deliveries met throughout that region. And the other thing I wanted to point out was the music would be facing away from the residents towards the intersection where the patio is. So we're really trying to, again, it's designed to hide the drive-through and really put that patio and that customer experience out on point, and put the amenity as the visible point, and the music where all of that will occur. And I think the only other thing that wasn't necessarily emphasized earlier was that Starbucks stores traditionally, in all cases, they are taking customers that are on the streets anyway. So I'd like to emphasize that these are customers who are driving these streets, and they're not going to go miles out of their way to go to a store. They're going to go to the store if it's convenient and if it's on their way already. And so this is a site that's not adding traffic. I think that's something that the traffic engineer had in the report, but I just wanted to emphasize that this is something that is pass-by traffic and not additive to the traffic flows as we've experienced as well. So those were really the highlights that I wanted to give, and I know there's a lot more questions.
I have a question. Mr. Blanchard, is it customary that deliveries are made that late at night?
Yeah,
between
typically
11 p.m. and 12?
Because of the market, in this particular market, they're made in the evenings to work with a larger plan for efficiency so that the deliveries can be made across across a broader market. So it's just scheduling and trying to get the business to run most efficiently.
And where do you anticipate that truck driving in? From Thousand Oaks Boulevard or Rancho? I'm kind of curious because I would assume it would be a very large truck, as I see.
Yeah, no, these are typically smaller trucks.
Oh.
These are refrigerator trucks. These are not trailer trucks. These are single loading trucks, and for the daily deliveries. So there would be a trailer truck maybe once a week that Neil Scribner mentioned that would be a much far less far less use. So they would be maybe once a week for coming onto site for a larger delivery.
Okay.
And
Then they're not like the ones at the market that deliver at the markets, those really big trucks that you see. Okay.
Exactly. The daily trucks are the smaller refrigerator trucks.
And other questions? Commissioner Ferris?
I did have a question. You mentioned that your desire is to have it open at midnight primarily because of the deliveries.
The deliveries are the only thing that we're looking to extend to midnight because of the flexibility of that market to try and give a little bit of more room.
So if a condition were to be written, the hours of operation would still be at 11.
Correct.
But it would be available for employees and deliveries till midnight and exclusive to that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's your intent.
Yep.
All right, thanks.
Commissioner Trepel?
Yeah, two questions. Thank you, Mr. Blanchard. And again, it's important for us, especially with delivery late at night, and I'm sure you've maybe had to address this with other cities in the past. But this isn't a situation that after 11 o'clock that the local residents are going to be listening to a truck with its diesel engine running for an hour as it offloads. Is that happening?
They are very quick in the deliveries. They've got a long list of stores that they need to visit, and they need to get on site. They generally pull up to the curb, make their drop fairly quickly. They're back in the truck, and they're on their way.
Okay.
So these are very efficient.
And to follow up on Commissioner Ferris's question, if I understood correctly, we're talking about the only time we need 11 to 12 p.m. is for the delivery, but the actual operation could, people off the patio, music turned off, all that kind of stuff.
Correct. The music definitely is off at 11.
Thanks.
Commissioner Roundtree? No? Commissioner Tapke? Okay, well, thank you very much. And I do have one more card from a David Fredrickson. If you'd like to come forward, state your name and city of residence, please. You have 5 minutes. Good evening, Mr. Fredrickson.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is David Fredrickson. I'm a resident at 267 Encino Vista Drive in Conejo Oaks, which is located just about 1 block north of the project site. I'm glad I came tonight because we've heard from some other residents, primarily in opposition of the project, I guess solely in opposition of the project, and I'm glad I came to voice my support of the project. I will say that I strongly support the project and request and encourage your approval, subject to certain conditions if they're appropriate. I think you guys are asking a lot of good questions, and there's some good points raised, and maybe there's some more investigation that needs to occur, but I think there's a number of things that were said tonight that maybe are a little bit ill-founded. I think that this is a very good solution for this site. I think the alternative of having this site remain vacant, overcome by weeds, if anyone looked at it today, the weeds are about 3.5 to 4 feet tall. They've looked that way for as long as I can remember. I've lived in this location for 9 years this year. So when I moved to the neighborhood, the site was vacant. I never lived here when there was a gas station there. I welcome the additional positive development to the community. I believe it's very consistent with the vision of the revised Thousand Oaks specific plan. I personally will drive to either Moore Park or Westlake Boulevard for a cup of coffee at Starbucks on a Saturday or Sunday, or if I'm on my way somewhere, I'll walk here from my house. My car won't hit the road. And I think that's going to be consistent with a lot of people that patronize this location. I think the locations at Moore Park and Westlake are not redundant. I think they'll actually serve to mitigate the traffic at this location. And the last speaker, my neighbor who spoke in opposition of the project, who mentioned that he does not have an explanation for the cars that turn around and do U-turns at Alamos, I think I might. I live right on Encino Vista, right past Hillcrest. I constantly have cars that are turning around in my driveway as well. And they're not turning around to get back to a commercial business somewhere down there. They're turning around because they think it's Rancho Conejo. They exit Rancho Road. They think it's Rancho Conejo. They get back on the freeway. They continue down 3 miles and get off the freeway. If you want to mitigate that issue, put a sign on the off-ramp that helps direct motorists further down the freeway to Rancho Road. They'll go straight off, back onto the northbound lanes, and they'll get off at Rancho Conejo. You'll solve an issue for the Conejo Oaks community that otherwise has gone unaddressed. And we'll address a lot of these issues that they're concerned with respect to traffic on Rancho. So my observation as a resident myself, I'm not an expert, but that's what I believe. And I have asked people that turn around in my driveway. After I ask them, please don't turn around in my driveway, I ask them why it is that they're here, and that's the explanation I get consistently. A few more observations that I have. I think that this is a great solution for this site. The site utility at this location is very limited, we know. The access is tough. It is on a busy intersection. It's a corner, and it's a small corner. It's surrounded and somewhat impacted by the surrounding properties. This is a reduced footprint of a business they're proposing at this location. I'm in real estate. I understand the challenges that this site presents. There's other uses that likely cannot be put here based on some of the past environmental conditions and the restrictions that imposes on a site. This is a very low site utility from a footprint standpoint. You're not going to have very many alternatives that are going to present similar opportunities to develop this site. And I think that there's certainly concerns that the neighbors have. I think Commissioner Roundtree made a great point, and what he was getting at, and maybe was polite enough not to say, was there was probably a more intense traffic generating use when some of these other residents moved in here. They knew what they were getting into when they bought their properties, so for them to object at this point in time is a bit hypocritical. And I think that for the positive development of Thousand Oaks and in consistent vision with the revised Thousand Oaks specific plan, I think this is a fantastic use. I encourage it, and I hope that it will also be approved. If I can just make a couple other comments. I live on the west side of Encino Vista to the freeway. When I moved in, I didn't have a wall in my backyard. There's tremendous freeway noise at that location. I, too, wanted a wall to mitigate that noise. I put it in and built it myself. I don't think it's fair to impose that type of a cost on a project developer, and I don't think that it should be a condition of their development. That's it. I think that this presents a very positive economic benefit for the community, and again, I request your approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions of the speaker? No. Thank you very much. And with that, we'll go back to staff. Mr. Alawami, do you have anything else you wanted to enter into the record, or Ms. Baden?
I have a couple comments, and I'll turn it to Ms. Baden. With regard to the wall, again, in my staff report, I explained that the building, as I mentioned by Commissioner Tompkins, is that the building, the existing lighting building, screens the majority of the house from the site itself. And I discussed that with the applicant regarding to the request in the letter with regard to the replacement of the tree and higher wall. And the applicant can attest to that in the future they're thinking of remodeling the existing building and improving the look of it. And at that time, they'll be looking at the overall site improvements in the back and the front of the existing building. And that might come up at a later date. If the project moves forward, they're going to come in with additional improvements to the existing building. But from the noise factor, with the location of the existing building, staff don't believe that's going to have, it acts as a buffer between the two locations. But again, there is no nexus between the project itself and the requested improvement for new trees and a higher wall. Besides, the maximum height allowed by code is 6 feet, so 8 feet or 10 feet requires an engineering calculation and additional cost. But at this time, staff looked at. I went out there myself and looked at it, and compared what the driveway is, and in comparison in relationship to the bedroom window, which is located almost to the rear of the site, and the existing building acts as a buffer between the two. With regard to the lights, there's maximum height light, which is going to be 14 feet for the parking lot, and with the new technology is going to be downward illumination with a cutoff shield, and staff don't believe that's going to be additional. The light will not be glaring at night. It will be, again, in compliance with the city requirements. With that, I'll turn it to Beth Baden for traffic comments.
There was a question about drive-through only Starbucks versus full-service Starbucks stores. I found a study online from the Institute of Transportation Engineers where there were counts taken at 12 coffee shops in the Kansas City metropolitan area, and 3 of the sites were drive-through only locations, and 9 were full-service operations. The maximum queue length that was reported in this study was 13 vehicles in their drive-through lane. And based on their observations of the various sites they considered, they recommended 6-vehicle total stack for drive-through only and 11-car stack for full service. This site accommodates 7 vehicles within the drive-through itself, and up to 14 without interfering with the public street. Staff also prepared 2 conditions to give us further comfort level that this site will operate well. And in the event that there are issues, we've got the applicant agreeing to make further improvements if need be to enhance the drive-through efficiency. And also if the drive-through were to impact the public street. So we do have some safeguards that are presented for you in the conditions before you tonight.
Thank you.
Additionally,
Yes.
with the discussion with regard to the directional signs, if the commission will allow off-site directional signs, then staff suggests the following condition to be added. Off-site directional signs on Rancho Road are allowed to inform the public of the drive-through access to Starbucks. That will be the off-site signs that will be along the driveway on Rancho Road to have signs that says drive-through with an arrow on it. So that will take care of that. And if the commission will support the additional hour of delivery, then there will be a modification to the hours or a new condition saying the delivery hours will be between 5 a.m. and midnight. Because my understanding is still they'd like to do the delivery during the business hours, but to extend that to midnight and leave the hours of business, operation hours to 5 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Okay, questions of staff? Commissioner Turpel?
Yes, the conditions that you were referring to with regard to the queuing and the stacking, could you point me to those real quick? As to which, I hate to put you on the spot like that, but...
In the Public Works conditions, conditions 94 and 95. And also 96.
Here we go. Okay. I'm sorry, 95 and 96, you said?
94 and 5 and 6.
Okay.
Okay, any further questions, Mr. Chappelle?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Anyone else have any questions of staff? Okay, I guess no further questions, so we'll go back to the applicant. And Mr. Scribner, you have 5 minutes of rebuttal time. If you state your name and city residence again, please.
Okay, thank you, Neil Scribner, Newberry Park. I think staff asked or answered the questions that I thought were outstanding there. I did go up and stand next to the house and the existing store in that area, listen, because I just wanted to see for myself what it was about. And quite honestly, with the sound from the freeway and Thousand Oaks Boulevard, and even Rancho Road, I mean, all the traffic, you're going uphill when you go up Rancho, so you're making noise to get up the road. And I just can't imagine that we can do anything that's going to improve the sound. And I certainly don't think we're going to do anything on this site that's going to add any sound to the current situation between the gas station and the busy street, the intersection. I just don't see it. So I don't know.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
So I think the questions were answered about on-site circulation, I hope. I want to point out, you're all familiar with drive-ins around town. I don't know of any drive-in that doesn't encounter the exact same situation. They leave the drive-up window and they enter usually a driveway where parking is. That's pretty much typical everywhere. The newest In-N-Out Burger, all of them are somewhat the same. So we're not doing anything that's not done all over town. It's been done for years, and I'm not aware of any traffic problems that are created out there. So I don't think we're adding one to the situation. In addition, most drive-ins, like McDonald's and so on, they have people going inside to eat, and they have children, and they're going through the parking lot. Here, remember, we're almost all drive-up. So there won't be any customers going back and forth to an indoor seating area. So that's the difference, and I think it's quite safe, quite honestly. So unless you have any more questions, that concludes.
Mr. Scribner, are you agreeable to the changing of condition 37 to read that the hours from 5 to midnight will be for delivery and the operating hours are 5 to 11 p.m.?
Yes. That's exactly what...
And also about the off-site directional signs that Mr. Alawani...
you mean at the driveways?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Was there any... Commissioner Ferris?
I did have one additional request. If you would be, obviously this is a change for some of the people who are in the residence, who live in residences in the area. They have been notified about the Planning Commission hearing at a 500-foot radius, and there's a pre-grade meeting to be at 300. Would you be amenable to having that be at 500?
I don't see that as a problem.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Any other questions of the applicant? Okay, then thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you.
Scribner. And with that, I'll close. Are there any other questions of staff? Or then I'll... Commissioner Turpel. Unless it's something that's going to involve the applicant.
No, I just had one more question that I actually wrote down and forgot to ask, and it had to do with the parking, because there is a condition that talks about the employees will be parking on site. I was just curious if there was any shared or reciprocal parking with the Caneo Lighting Center, with the parking right there.
Well, based on parking requirements, the site itself accommodated more than what's required.
Okay.
So there's no need for reciprocal parking arrangement because there's already enough. Based on the square footage, 850 square feet required 3 spaces.
I'm sorry, requires...
3 spaces. and they have 10 spaces on site. So there's more than adequate to accommodate
Oh, I
the
see what you're saying.
employees.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, and with that, then I'll close the public hearing. Now's the time for a motion, deliberation. Commissioners? Would anyone in particular like to start, or do you want me to start? I've lived in the area, 38 years. I lived further down in Sino Vista, La Jolla, down. And so I've been through the gas stations. I remember when the Chevron was the American station, when there wasn't the 2 office buildings across the street from this one house in particular. And I sat through all those hearings for those buildings. And I know that there, at one time, they tried to put a McDonald's on this piece of property, and that was turned down. And I think that the property owner has worked diligently with the architect to find a good use for this property. And I think that it will be a low use compared to what could be on the property. None of us like change. I think we all moved out here because we liked the community and that it was rural. I grew up in Encino where there was sheep grazing across from this big pink modern house my folks built. And then I watched the whole valley grow up. So I think we don't do well with change, and I can understand why the neighbors are not happy with anything that would probably be on this property other than maybe just left vacant and a nice green area park. But this is a piece of property that belongs to someone, and they have property rights. And if their building that they're proposing meets conditions, and if they're amenable to the conditions the city has put on it, then I believe that the project should be approved. So with that, I'm going to move that we approve SUP 2011-70592 with the new conditions of the off-site directional signs, meaning one for each driveway, with the hours of operation from 5 to 11, but deliveries allowed from the 11 to 12 midnight. So I would hope there would not be music or people sitting in the patio after 11 o'clock at night. I think that's one concession that could be done. And with our evenings, they get chilly anyway. I don't know about people sitting out there. I'm not a coffee drinker, so. And was there anything else that I missed then, Commissioner Ferris?
Would you be kind enough to add to your motion a modification to number 72 to increase the radius to 500?
Oh, yes,
feet
I'm
for the
sorry,
pre-grading
for the grading meeting,
Yes,
which I think it's a very important meeting because then they understand that they're going to hear noise on the property and dust, and really, I think it's a chance for the applicant to meet with the neighbors too. And so, yes, I will definitely add that. And if there's nothing else, that's my motion to approve the project. Other commissioners have comments to it? Usually the chair doesn't make motions. That's why I was hesitant. So anyone else like to add? Commissioner Roundtree.
This property, I think it was described as being geographically challenged. I've thought, well, what else could go here? Another gas station? Der Wiener Schnitzel? I mean, just all the things that go through your mind. What could possibly go here that would be aesthetically pleasing for the community? Sure, there's challenges, traffic and so forth, but nothing that's not already there. So I kind of have to go along with you in terms of maybe it wouldn't have been my first choice, but after having gone through all the other alternatives, which are getting slimmer and slimmer and slimmer for one reason or another. So I think I'm in. Thanks.
Commissioner Turpel?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to go ahead and support the motion as well. It's always tough to mitigate things for the residents, but you also have the property rights of the property owner. And I actually think that the architect and the relationship that they have with Starbucks, they've done a really good job with, as Commissioner Roundtree was talking about, a very geographically challenged piece of property. I thought it was designed very well, especially to fit it into the Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plan and meet our needs there. I also like that Mr. Blanchard brought up a good point that Starbucks primarily is not a destination stop. It really serves traffic that is already on the corridor. So it's not like it's going to be increasing anything more than isn't already there. And I like the landscaping and the elevation that the architects put into it. I think that's going to add a lot to our boulevard, and I think it's a positive thing, so I'm going to support the motion as well. I want to just give kudos to Commissioner Ferris for bringing up that 500-foot. I think that was a great idea.
Good idea. Commissioner Ferris?
Sure. For just to say that all things considered, I will too support the motion and the project. There's, I think, trepidation when we have something that's going to end up changing the dynamics of a neighborhood, or at least some people who live in that and are affected by it. And we try and balance that with all of the aspects of the Thousand Oaks specific plan and hearing the direct concerns of residents on this. I'm glad that we're able to at least keep it to 11 p.m., but I was able to, sometime during the hearing, use my Starbucks app to be able to find what all the hours of operation are, and it's going to turn out this will be the one that stays open on average the longest in Thousand Oaks. The one on Moore Park stays open till 11:30 on Fridays and Saturdays, but this one will be the latest. So a lot of them, they end at 9 or 10. So this will in fact be something that is open a little bit later. But I'm glad that they don't want to keep the hours of operation until midnight. It's just for deliveries. Again, thankful for the commission to increase the radius to 500 feet. It's merely just a notification. We want residents involved in what's happening in their neighborhood, and so and I'm also thankful for the applicant for being amenable to that. There is I think one bit of sadness that I have about this project is that we went through a very long process of looking at what we had as a vision for the Thousand Oaks Boulevard in the specific plan. And then what was approved by the City Council initially was that there were no drive-through establishments. Yet the first property that will be approved will be one where we had to change the specific plan to allow a drive-through establishment. I like the design. I think it'll be a nice anchor point for the boulevard. But I'm saddened that this is really the first one. It really wasn't consistent with the overall vision. But those are parts that don't give you the great enthusiasm to be able to support it. But I will support the motion to approve the project this evening.
Commissioner Tapking?
I will support the motion. I grew up here. I lived in Conejo Oaks. My family still lives in Conejo Oaks. I drive that street on a regular basis, both in and out and around and everywhere else. I'm excited to see Starbucks coming into the area, to see some of the walking traffic that will come down to the area also. I think that's going to be very interesting to see. I'm not disappointed to see this be our first one. For years, having looked at the plans on Thousand Oaks Boulevard, it's always been innocuous, kind of incredulous that we don't have some more drive-through areas like this, although we do down at the other end where we bring them off of other properties. That's an interesting way to do it, too. But the part that would concern me on this still becomes one of the points on the lighting and some of the sound issues. Although the music, et cetera, will be pointed the other way, and I think we have a lot of sound buffers, frankly, I would love to see the wall extended. But I understand from what staff is talking about on the limitations from the height, although we did have 10-foot walls in other areas, 10-foot walls can be a significant issue also. So when the property, Mr. Winchester, when you do address the revision of that property, I would expect that as this group looks forward to this, that we will have the opportunity to see some of those other areas addressed to deal with that. So having said that, I will support the motion.
Thank you. And my final words are that I really appreciate the deliberation and how this commission's worked together tonight. This is really, I think, with all the new commissioners, this is one of our first really big ones. And I really think that we work well together on that. And so with that, would you please vote?
Motion passed 5-0.
And there is a 10-day right of appeal period. And with that, we'll continue on with our agenda. Mr. Shepherd, if you wanted to talk about, is it the, let's see, the department reports and referrals?
Yes, Madam Chair, the excuse me, the referrals and so forth. We have no referrals tonight. We do want to have your attention to the Planning Commission tentative agendas as far as hearings upcoming. Please note that the July 9th meeting, we're going to be canceling that meeting. Initially, we had on the tentative agenda 2 items scheduled for that night, but there's some changes in the designs and so forth on those projects, so they're not ready to go to hearing at this point, so they've been pulled off that agenda. So there will be no meeting on the 9th, which kind of works well with the 4th of July the week before, so it's a little more time for you on review. And then, of course, the next meeting is the July 23rd meeting. There is a project scheduled for a modification for the RPD out in the, I believe that's the North Ranch area, for some encroachments into some open space areas with some vineyards and so forth. So you'll be getting that review. And then, of course, the August recess, and then back in action in September. There's an August recess. Yeah. Traditional on that, so we're back in action in September. Yeah.
And do you think that we will have a September 10th meeting? Well, it depends on what happens in August with the public notices and the filings and everything, too.
Yes, we'll probably have a better idea of the September meetings at the next meeting in July.
Okay. And I don't know for sure if I'll be at that meeting. My flight is at 11 o'clock that night to Baltimore. So we'll continue on with the minutes and resolutions. And before I ask for a motion to approve, I think that Mr. Heher has some comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution number 13, 2012 in your packet needs to be pulled tonight. This has to do with the resolution regarding the major modifications for the Jan's Marketplace and the signage. The resolution just has a couple of errors on it that are material, having to do with how the votes went. And this, if you recall, this was broken into 2 different elements. And we want to clean that up, and we apologize. But this resolution needs to be corrected, and we'll bring it back at the next hearing for approval.
Okay, with that, then I'll ask approval of the minutes of the May 14th, 2012 meeting. Is there a motion, Commissioner Ferris?
Approval of the minutes, and then, of course, with the resolutions pulled as a result.
Right. Just the minutes. We're only approving the minutes. Okay, please vote.
Motion passed 4-0 with Commissioner Turpel abstaining.
Okay, Commissioner Turpel was not in attendance. Any AB 1234 reports? I don't think any commissioners have been anywhere. Commission comments? Anybody other than a happy 4th of July? And for, I don't know, 25 years, I've gone on top of the building. I think you probably all received your pass. And that, to me, is really a fun thing to do. And this is the first year my husband won't be patrolling or at a corner, so he'll be up there again. But you're right there where the fireworks are let off. And I really think it's worth it. You don't need to go up at 3 in the afternoon. but it's fun. A lot of people take picnics up and sit there, and you turn your car radio to the KCLU, and you get to hear the music along with the fireworks, and it's just being patient leaving the property at the end of the evening and getting back home. That does take time because they only last about 20 minutes or so, but it's really always it's a fun thing. And I remember an old city manager his family would even make homemade ice cream up there. So, Commissioner Trappell.
Yeah, I just realized this was the, I didn't get a chance because I wasn't at the meeting when our two new commissioners were sworn in. So to Commissioner Tapking and to Commissioner Roundtree, I look forward to working with you.
Good. Any other comments? Okay, with that, whoops, I closed my book. We'll adjourn the meeting to the, it's now July 23rd, 2012 meeting. And have a nice holiday. Good night.